It isn't just the caller that Nick had from Horton Hill, Sally in Horton on the Hill, who just stopped me. Does it happen to you sometimes? I hope it does. I hope it even happens on my show occasionally, where somebody says something, and you just go, yeah. But I don't know that I've got anything else to add. It's a slightly unhealthy thought to have at 9:30 in the morning when you're due on the radio for 3 hours at 10 o'clock. But I don't think there's anything else to add. And she just said, well, for me, it's always going to be the candidate that's not the rapist or the candidate that's not the criminal. I saw a wonderful chart the other day of all the felony charges that have been faced by presidents since the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, since the role of President of the United States of America was invented. And it sometimes you need to see things distilled down to really simple building blocks to be reminded of how straightforward things used to be. So it goes like this, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many presidents of America there have been, but it goes 0 90 something zero, as in the only, and that's charges, that's not convictions. If it was going to be felony convictions, it would go 0 34 0. And what does it do next? Does it go 34 0 34 or does it go 34 0 0? And of course, if it goes 34 0 34, that 34 is going to rise in the coming days. So you've got that. That's the first. What would you call it? Things that you would have thought were deal breakers. Right? Convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, self-confessed sex offender. Then you've got abortion. So there is a piece by Emma Barnett, formerly of this parish, in the newspaper today, where she talks about what is at stake as America votes. Abortion being a very live issue in this election debate, despite very few people believing that what Donald Trump publicly professes is what he would privately contend. It is there. You're going to turn abortion into a hideous minefield up and down, right across America, potentially. And that should be a deal breaker for many, many people. Sexual autonomy for women. So you've got the rape, you've got the abortion, you've got something else that you may not be aware of. Imagine writing an article contingent upon the possibility that Donald Trump would ban vaccines. Have you heard this one yet? A US ban on vaccines would have dire implications for Americans and could put vulnerable Britons at greater risk of harm, a UK-based expert has said. So Donald Trump has promised to put Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in charge of public health initiatives. Kennedy was originally running as an independent. He's one of the most prominent conspiracy theorists on the planet, and Trump has suggested he could lead health policy. He has, for example, publicly and frequently stated that vaccines are linked to autism. When asked over the weekend whether banning certain vaccines would be on the table, and remember, this would be banning vaccines based on conspiracy theories rather than science, Trump said he would consider it. He would talk to Kennedy and others about the issue. So you're looking at this. You're looking at a full-on. I give you an idea of where this guy's coming from. If he was in the UK, he'd probably be on GB News. Now, that's how up to his neck he is in crazy conspiracy theory. And do you know what? Actually, maybe, because one or two people have been considered too bonkers even for that outfit, haven't they? So he may be too bonkers even for a gig on GB News, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I'm not sure. But that's what you're looking at. So you've got the abortion, you've got the sex offending, you've got the felonies, you've got the vaccines, you've got quite a good piece by the same newspaper's chief political commentator looking at the diplomatic nightmare, that what diplomats would have to do, they'd have to get people in Washington. One thing you can be sure of, whoever wins, Nigel Farage will be begging for a job. Because one thing you can say about people who claim to be anti-establishment, they are almost always absolutely desperate to be in the establishment. But that is irrelevant for now. I presume he's there, is he? I very much doubt he's in Clacton. I presume he's gone to America to complain about American politicians interfering in British politics. But all of those things, and the vox pops I heard this morning that involve people saying, I don't think America is ready for a woman president. And that is where my question for you today comes from. Because have a look at UK politics. Listen, it's a bit weird, this fetishisation of Margaret Thatcher. Every time the Tories elect a female leader, the columnists are queuing up to describe her as the new Margaret Thatcher. In Theresa May's case, they even had a front page on the Daily Mail that said the steel of the new Iron Lady. I think when Truss released her budget, Farage came out and said it's the best budget since 1986. 1986 wasn't a notable year for budgets, but detail has never been his strong point. And now Kemi Badenoch, they're obsessed with the idea of Kemi Badenoch being the new Thatcher. But that's 4 leaders. That's 4 female leaders the Tory party has had. That's 4 prime ministers, potentially. It's 3 already. 3 female prime ministers we've had in this country. So when I heard quite a lot of vox pops this morning saying, the country's not ready for a female president, I'm going to do my full range of American accents during the course of this hour, if you're lucky. The country's not ready for a female president. I realised the gulf. Oscar Wilde talked about 2 countries being divided by a common language. Do you remember that? Obviously not directly, but you remember that old, I love that. Is it Oscar Wilde? It's usually Oscar Wilde. 2 countries divided by a foreign language. We have an idea in our heads. I don't know whether it's true of Americans, but it's certainly true of Brits. We have an idea in our heads that we are very similar. We have an idea in our heads, probably as a colonial inheritance, possibly because until George III came along, America was a British colony. We were in charge. We knelt even to the same monarch. So I still carry this idea of kinship, cousinhood, the idea that we are somehow 2 branches on the same family tree, right? And I don't know a lot about America. And I think that is one of the reasons why I have struggled so much with the willingness of half of America to support an adjudicated rapist, a serial felon, a self-confessed sex offender. You can make the list yourself. And I don't understand why everybody doesn't do that. That's what I would have done if I was in charge of a broadcasting organisation of a newspaper. I'd just put together one paragraph that accurately describes all the things Donald Trump is and insist that they read the whole paragraph or print the whole paragraph whenever they mention his name. Donald Trump, who is an adjudicated rapist, a self-confessed sex offender, a serial felon, and faces charges for and led the insurrection. I mean, you'd have to pick and choose, wouldn't you? You couldn't put it all there. It'd take up pages. But here it is. Richard points out that some people claimed America wasn't ready for a black president 16 years ago. And there was indeed a landslide shortly after that. So I hope that the claims America's not ready for a female president prove to be as ill-founded as the claims that America wasn't ready for a black president. But there are enough of those claims to make this question pertinent. Okay? You may need to be American to answer this. You certainly would need to know more about America than I do. And here's the question. When you look at, when like me, you feel abject befuddlement, let alone despair, but you feel abject befuddlement about the fact that half the country is prepared to support him, when half the country doesn't see it as clearly as Sally in Horton on the Hill sees it and goes, when given a choice between a rapist and a non-rapist, for me it will always be the non-rapist. You can't quite get your head around the fact that we're still having the conversations that we're having. What is it about America that Brits like me don't understand? Okay? That's the question I want you to answer. What is it about America, modern America, that Brits like me don't understand? Okay? What is it about? I keep saying America. I've just apologized for saying America, and I've said America about 20 times. So what is it about the United States? What is it about the States that Brits like me just don't know, just don't get, just don't understand? The history, the politics, the demographics, the geography. All of those factors that you would... Because, I mean, even talking about the United States of America seems anomalous when Simon Marks reminds us that the results come in from rural areas and they are measurably and historically very different from the results that come in from urban areas. But that will be true in a lot of territories, in a lot of countries, in a lot of electorates, where the prospect of the adjudicated rapist enjoying 50% support would be unthinkable, So... Here is the... listen, I get quite a few messages like this. I'll read you one or two just to keep you amused. After Trump gets elected, I won't miss your show for anything. Your meltdown will be priceless to witness. There won't be a meltdown, George. I will be dismayed at the fact that people like you love rapists. And that is, certainly for women listening, that's kind of scary. But it's not a meltdown because we've spent so much time examining it and wondering why this could happen. And part of it has to be, listen, because I refuse, George, to accept that every fan of Donald Trump is like you, simply a fan of rapists, all right? There has to be something else going on that is subtler than that, more complicated than that. What is it about the United States of America that many Brits just don't understand?